Hi and welcome to what I hope will be the first of many videos based around expedition and vehicle camping matters. This first video is an introduction to my expedition vehicle, which is a Landcruiser HJ60. It's a 1990 model, the very last of the run. The background to this vehicle is I bought it about 11 years ago, drove it down the west coast of Africa to the Gambia, drove it back again, did a trip to Russia, a few other bits and pieces. Then it was getting to the stage that realistically it needed either a major rebuild or selling on. It was getting quite rusty, as these vehicles tend to do. The sensible thing to do was to sell it on and buy a new vehicle, so I didn't do that. I went for the renovation option. It went in for renovation for about 3 years, got it back about 2 years ago, and this is the result. I used the experience that I'd got from several expeditions to come up with what I felt was going to be the best vehicle for the uses that I had for it. The renovation was principally restricted to the bodywork and the chassis to sort out the corrosion issues. Didn't do the internals or anything to do with the mechanical bits at all, really. What we're going to do now is just have a little walk around the vehicle and have a look at what changes I've made to it. Thank you very much. So we'll start at the front of the vehicle because that seems a good enough place to start as any. We've got these lights on the front here. They were bought from Devon 4x4, high performance spotlights. They've got quite a good lighting pattern. I like them because they match the original headlights of the vehicle. They do restrict the airflow a little bit to the radiator, but the major problem that I had with them is that they started to corrode quite quickly around the frames. Quite severe rust. Got in touch with Devon about that. They said, well, stainless steel does that if it gets wet, which clearly is nonsense. Stainless steel, the whole point is it doesn't. Managed to improve them with a bit of metal polish. Of course, they aren't stainless, they're a chromed metal, but not that impressed with them, bearing in mind they're over £300. We've got a Winch Max winch on the front, £16,000 capacity, it's 24 volt, everything on this vehicle is 24 volts. It's got a rope rather than a wire on it, mainly for safety reasons. It's there principally for insurance. The idea with an expedition vehicle is that you don't get yourself into the situation whereby you're doing extreme off-roading, but it's there if I need it. That's mounted on an ARB winch bar, very sturdy piece of equipment. This was the last one, I believe, in Europe for this particular model of vehicle, and it's already proved its worth in when I hit a wall, protecting the bodywork of the vehicle for virtually no damage to the bar itself. We'll have a little bit of a look, a little bit closer up at these items next. Okay, so this is the ARB winch bar. It's a pretty good item, but you can tell with a lot of the ARB stuff that it's designed for the Australian outback. You can see that after 2.5 years of fairly light use, it's already going a little bit corroded. It is pretty heavy duty bar though. Where I hit the wall is around this side. I've put a wee dab of hammerite on there, and you can barely even tell that it's hit it. It didn't bend it at all, so it's already proved its worth. It would have been pretty damaging to the bodywork of the vehicle. Got the Winch Max winch here, good value winch, very reasonably priced. It's not the fastest winch in the world, but that's the price that you pay for speed. Speed isn't really a problem for me. I'm not doing challenge events with this. It's just to get me out of trouble if it's needed. These are the IPF lights that we spoke about. The corrosion is not particularly noticeable now that I've done it with the metal polish, but you have to keep on doing it to be able to keep those in a reasonable standard of repair. One of the other features on the front of the vehicle that's been incorporated, we have a battery isolator switch here. It's partly for security, it's partly because I was having trouble with the batteries draining over 2 or 3 days, so it isolates them there. Also has a benefit if there's a fire under the bonnet. One of the features of vehicles' bonnet releases is that if there's a fire, the plastic shroud seems to melt and seize the bonnet release, and you can't open the bonnet to either tackle the fire or isolate the electrics, and that's obviously quite a problem. One of the most distinctive features of the vehicle is this black bonnet. It's painted black principally for reasons of reflection when you're in the bright sunshine. But you'll notice it's also got this material on it. It's painted with this stuff. It's actually used on the walkways of oil rigs and trawlers and things like that. It's got crunched up tyre rubber in it. It's very, very grippy for if you want to walk on the bonnet to get to the roof rack, or for when I'm stowing stuff under the net like recovery ropes and such, which are dirty, so I don't have to have them in the vehicle. It stops them from slipping off again. Looks pretty gnarly, but been very, very effective in its use. You can see here, these are stainless steel yacht fixings. I've had those on for years and absolutely no corrosion at all, so you can see that that's complete nonsense about the stainless steel. The body was completely repainted. It was a body off job, repainted in an original Toyota colour, this sort of beige. New wings, new doors. We had a new upper tailgate, good second-hand lower tailgate because they're almost impossible to source. We'll have a little walk around the back of the vehicle to see that. The lower tailgates rust really badly, so good second-hand one's very hard to find, but a friend of mine, Andy Lomas, managed to sort me out with one of those. And the new upper tailgate from LL Landcruisers in Holland, who also supplied the replacement number plate lights. Rear bumper, pretty heavy duty item. That's custom made by the guys that did the renovation up at Waveney Land Rover. They do dirty their hands with non-Land Rover 4x4s as well. And you can see the pretty hefty Dixon Bate style tow bar on there. I've fitted a pintle for recovery use. Should never be using the standard tow ball for recovery, so the pintle is for the ropes to go through on the recovery if needed for pulling other vehicles out. And that's a 5-ton capacity to give me a bit of margin. The other thing you'll notice at the back of the vehicle is the outlet for the onboard air, which we'll have a look at in a little while, so I can plug in and re-inflate the tyres if I'm off-road. Had lots of problems with that, which I'll go into at a later point. Suspension wise, what we've got on here is Old Man Emu suspension. Again, you can see it's designed for the Australian market. It's not particularly rust proof, but I've got Old Man Emu springs and shock absorbers, and that's the heavy duty fitment, which gives you around about 50mm of lift. We have a look around this side. You can see the front hanger just there as well. What you'll also notice whilst I'm under here is a underbody skid plate. This became necessary. I fitted a long-range fuel tank, and that hangs down right in the middle of the vehicle. It's very, very vulnerable. It's not a particularly good design. It gives me an extra 65 litres of fuel, but it is very vulnerable. So my mate Stringer Adams at Fabrications made me up the skid plate, and I've had the full weight of the vehicle on that, on a rock, and it didn't deform at all, so that's a really good solid piece of kit. On the side here we've got rock sliders. They're actually from a 110 Land Rover, and as you can see they fit pretty much perfectly. Shame to say I've got some Land Rover parts on this, but they haven't rusted yet, which is surprising. Wheels, these are an 8-inch rim, 33 offset, minus 33 offset. Just brings the wheel out a little bit to the side of the vehicle, improves the stability and the I think the look of the vehicle. And the tyres are a 235/85/16 BF Goodrich all-terrain, good general purpose tyre. A little bit tricky to get on this rim, really. You need a 7-inch rim rather than an 8 for these particular tyres, but they do the job very nicely. Good general purpose tyre. So we're now looking at the front of the vehicle suspension. Old Man Emu heavy duty again. You can see the shocks there. Old Man Emu again heavy duty. Gives a really good ride, actually. Very surprising for a heavy duty system, bearing in mind I don't have a lot of weight in the back scooting around normally. It's surprisingly comfortable, very compliant, very good axle articulation. Just a bit not very resistant to the old tin worm. That's the only thing with this, but very good suspension system. The only modification that's really been done to the inside of the vehicle for seating is the fitting of these two seats from the front of a Toyota Hilux Mark 6. This ensures that the kids have got comfortable seats. You can sit tight to the kids' seat from the crumbs that are in there. And we've got race harnesses there for them to wear when we're off-road, so they don't get thrown around too much in the back of the vehicle. This is the front of the vehicle. The original Toyota head unit has another unit underneath it, which I think is a dropper for the original stereo. That came out now that we've got a 12-volt system. In here is my Carling switches for controlling the rear lockers, compressor, spotlights, winch, that kind of thing. Got a remote switch in here for the winch, so that if I'm winching from inside the vehicle and there's a problem, I can isolate the winch from here. We've also got the standard kind of disconnect switch on the front bumper there as well, should it be required. You can see that this is the original 24-volt socket here, but I've also fitted two extra 12-volt sockets here and here, which enable us to run a number of accessories all at the same time. Under the bonnet, you can see we've got a pretty stock 2H engine, 4-litre naturally aspirated diesel, gone forever, no point in messing around with those. I've fitted a manually switched electric fan to the front of the radiator just to give some additional cooling when it's under duress, and also to build in some degree of redundancy as well should the main fan fail. This side is where most of the modifications have been done. So I've got an ARB compressor, that's for the ARB diff locks, which I've got front and rear. 24-volt compressor, although it's got some 12-volt components to it, which I don't really like. It's a bit cheapy to be putting 12-volt components on something as expensive as this, when it's a 24-volt system. The only problem I've had with this was the failure of a relay, which caused the system to fail, and also when the exhaust went, the pipe going through to the feed at the back failed as well. So I always carry a backup method of inflating the tyres in the way of a foot pump, and also a plug-in air compressor. You'll notice I've also got an air tank there. It's got a handle on it to switch the air on or off to the outlets at the back of the vehicle, and that allows inflation of the tyres. It's as quick as a garage air system. Also under here we've got fuses for 12-volt system, so we're now running two lots of electrics, running 12 and 24 volt, and we've got one for the additional 24-volt system. The wiring's a bit of a bird's nest at the moment because the alternator failed, and the one that we got was slightly different to the one that was on the vehicle and necessitated some extra wiring putting in. You'll notice here there's a voltage dropper for the 12-volt system. That's packed up. Don't really like living under a bonnet in hostile conditions. That needs to be remounted inside the vehicle when I get a replacement, but for the time being I've just got a 12-volt feed coming off the battery. It's not ideal, as any auto electrician will tell you, taking 12 volts off a 24-volt system, it's not perfect. But that's the underbody system. So here we've got the Safari snorkel. Got the Cyclone pre-cleaner on the top, and you can see on the side is the breathers for the diff breather pipes. So basically I'll drown before anything mechanical does. So that's effectively my vehicle. I'll just do a little bit of a walk around. Got locking diffs, as I said, ARB front and rear. Changed the differential ratios to one from an automatic just to compensate for the bigger than standard tyres. We've got the front window shields there, which are absolute godsend. You can have the windows down just a little bit in bad weather and still get a bit of ventilation, and in hot weather you can have the window right down without getting your head blown off by the wind, which is nice. As I said, all four doors were replaced during the rebuild. Rear quarter panels were repaired and the new sills were welded in. Got an up-racked roof rack on the roof. Expensive bit of kit and can't really recommend it. There's a weld about there. Failed within a month of getting the roof rack fitted, and with no weight on the roof rack at all. It had never had any weight. It became apparent that when this rail that goes around had been bent, the two ends didn't match up. They were out of alignment by over an inch. They forced them into position, welded it, and the weld simply couldn't take the strain. Contacted up racks, they weren't interested in sorting out the problem at all, so pretty dismal performance from them, to be honest. So again, my mate Stringer at Overfab came to the rescue, fitted me with this rear brace, which has braced up the rear. It was a pig to fit because of the lining up of the bolts, but he's done a fantastic job of that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Toyota Landcruiser.